So the world's strongest man athletes are announced, and we have had some fun trying to put together our own groups for this year's contest, which has turned out to be surprisingly hard.
I think fun is a stretch. Okay. We thought it would be fun, but it's not been fun at all, really, has it?
It's been stressful. I've got less hair than I did at the start of this video. Do you know what? Kiliashkovsky pulling out really messed things up for us.
It did, because we had it all set, and then that same day he announced he was pulling out of the competition. He was our 5th seed, so he was in our top 5. And then it just became a real mess, didn't it? And we're trying to make sure that we separate the absolute best guys, that we've got good representation in terms of nations, in terms of the amount of guys that have been finalists before, their ability. It's so
recent performances, etc., etc. Past performances at World's Strongest Man. Many factors come into this. We have had many an argument over this.
We have. This has almost ended us.
And I'm sure you guys are going to, some will agree, some will disagree. One thing you have to take from this video is how hard it actually is for the people that do end up putting the groups together. And what's more of a headache is once they've put the groups together and then you have dropouts.
Yes.
It becomes even more frustrating because you've got to kind of rejig. You can't just replace one person. Sometimes you've got to look at it and think, well, that group's too easy now and that group's too hard. And it's very difficult to make it as balanced as possible.
A logistical nightmare. So just to be very clear, this is not the groups for World's Strongest Man 2022. This is how we probably would spread them out. So first, we have our 5 main seeds. Now, I don't think there's any huge surprises for most of them. So the first 4, current World's Strongest Man, Tom Stoltman. We have Brian Shaw, placed 2nd last year, 4-time champion. We have Martins Lissis. Last time he did this competition, he won.
He's obviously won his last 2 major competitions as well.
We've got Alexei Novikov. He didn't make the final last year, but he is a former World's Strongest Man, and he just won Europe's Strongest Man. Still, obviously, an incredible athlete. 5 is where it got really tricky. Now, we really deliberated, and we went with Mateusz based on the fact that the last 2 times he did this competition, he was 2nd.
Yeah.
Him pulling out, now it was a toss-up really between Maxime Boudreau, who placed 3rd last year, but other than winning the Magnus Ver, he didn't do brilliantly at the Arnold's or the Shaw Classic. Then we had Luke Stoltman, who won Europe's last year, also won the show in Glasgow. Then there was Evan, who's won 2 Giants Live but never made the final.
So it was tough to decide out of those 3 who we should put as the 5th seed.
We went with Luke.
Yeah. I think Luke's a good choice. He did exceptionally well in the final last year, right up until the last minute. He won Europe's Strongest Man. He won the World Tour finals in Glasgow. He just recently come 2nd at Europe's Strongest Man. And before that, he was joint 3rd at the Arnold. So he's had a very good run. And we feel Luke deserves that 5th place seed.
Yeah, so those 5 are nicely spread out. We wouldn't put any of those in the same group as each other.
So next up, we had to look at the next real 5 big names. You obviously want to try and keep spreading people out as much as possible, try and make the groups as fair. And this was, you know, a real good group of athletes as well. I think you certainly don't want 3 or 4 of these guys in the same group. So we looked at Trey Mitchell. We looked at Maxime Boudreau, we looked at Bobby Thompson, Evan Singleton, and Konstantin Janasha. 5 guys that have been very impressive over the last few years. I mean, Janasha has never not made the final. Obviously, we mentioned Evan, how good he was last year, winning Giants Live shows. Trey Mitchell won the Shaw Classic. Maxime was 3rd at World's Strongest Man last year. So again, you know,
really
solid group of athletes. Yeah. You really don't want to see these guys all in the same group. So we needed to make sure we had a top 10 that we spread out as evenly as possible.
None of this is what caused the problems for us.
No, this wasn't too bad, this bit.
Even the next layer, now we call this layer 3, wasn't too bad, was it? It's the rest that's the real issue. So
this was hard because originally it was fine, but then it's when you go to the next athletes and you think, actually, that guy's really good.
Yeah.
And, well, that guy's really good.
That guy's done this, this, and this. So there's actually more than 5 guys in this layer. It's a complicated layer. So we've got the likes of Rob Kearney, who placed 5th at the Arnold Strongman Classic. We've got Pablo Cordiaca, Adam Bishop, Kevin Ferris, Ivor Schmuxtelis. This is such a solid, really tough. These are the guys that are going to cause big problems for the top names. Really big problems, because they're not our 1 or 2 seeds, but they could win a group.
Well, this is the thing with World's Strongest Man now. You really do have 30 athletes that are of a high level.
Yeah.
And what becomes even harder is once we know the events, because you'll start looking at athletes saying, well, that guy's really good at that. He might not be so good at that. And it can come down to what events you get into your group.
Yeah.
But we're doing this based just on
names,
performances and names, which is even harder, because we may see these groups on paper and they look tough, and then suddenly you could see the events and it can completely change them.
Yeah.
Very difficult thing to do.
But like I said, there's more than 5 guys in this layer. I would include Shane Flowers, Paro Dwyer. The rest is what made it really difficult, because you've got a real mix here of guys who've never been to World's Strongest Man. So really, we call them our unknowns. We don't really know how they're going to perform, because even though we can look at their one-day show performances, World's Strongest Man is a different beast. For some people, it really suits them, and they could surprise all of us.
So I've got a feeling someone like Kelvin de Ruyter is going to be suited to World's Strongest Man. I think his natural ability at awkward events,
And his stature.
When you look at World's Strongest Man historically, big men do very, very well. Terry Holland's always performed exceptionally well at World's Strongest Man. Obviously, the likes of Brian Shaw, Thor Bjornsson. But go back even further. Ted Van Der Paar wasn't the statically strongest guy in the world, but when it came to Worlds, he was exceptionally good. Yeah. And if there's things like a truck pull in there, a keg toss in there, awkward carrying events, loading events, people like that can cause massive guys that we normally look at the one-day shows and thinking they're really good, they cause them real problems. And then you've got other guys that just don't like the longer format of World's Strongest Man. They're athletes, they get themselves so psyched up, they're kind of like channeling that aggression, but you only do 1 or 2 events a day for the first few days at World's Strongest Man. So suddenly you get this adrenaline dump and you just have nothing left. So understanding how to cope with those issues is actually really important when it comes to World's Strongest Man. It's why having experience becomes very beneficial.
So what I'm going to do now, it's not a literal dump, because we have thought about this very carefully, but I'm going to chuck all of the rest of the names on the screen now, so you guys can see.
Individual group?
Yeah, well, let's talk through each group and our rationale and reasoning, if we have any.
So group number 1, we've got the defending World's Strongest Man. Tom Stoltman, we've put Konstantin Janasha in there with him, Kevin Fairs, Gregor Szymanski, Gabriel Pena, and Gabriel Ruhm. Now that is a tough list of athletes.
It is, but they all are tough.
And this is the thing, we kind of went through, we spent way too much time on this.
We spent hours on this, and
we've been moving people around and chopping and changing. It's so hard, it really is so hard to predict. And to get right. Being a former athlete, you get your group and you're like, oh, they don't like me. Yeah. But when you're on the other side of it, you kind of look at it, well, where do you put people?
Yeah, I would challenge everyone to try this, because it's really difficult.
One thing we found hard was making sure that we didn't put 3 Americans in the same group or 3 British guys, because obviously there's more than 5. You don't really want to have... You want either 1 or a maximum of 2 in each group. So our group number 2, we are starting off with the 2019 champion, Martin Zlissis. Now, he has to be one of the heavy favourites this year.
Definitely.
Won the Arnold Classic, won the Rogue Invitational. The man is in form, knows how to peak for big competitions, has great experience at World's Strongest Man. You see him, or I certainly see him, as the heavy favourite in this group. Obviously, he's going to have a big challenge from the likes of Evan Singleton.
Yeah.
And Adam Bishop has made the final the last few years in a row. It's going to be an interesting one, because Evan has proven he's really stepped up the last year.
It would be an interesting one. We have to remember this isn't actually happening.
Yeah. It would be an interesting one, because Evan hasn't yet made the final of Worlds, but he's had an amazing year last year. Adam Bishop has made the final the last few years. But then, like I said earlier, Kelvin de Ruyter, he could be a spanner in the works. Yeah. And then we've got Jean-Steven Karabuff and Mark Felix rounding off group number 2. Group number 3, we changed way too many times.
3 and 5 and 4.
So So we're starting off with Brian Shaw.
Yeah.
Now, some people are talking about Brian's drive for 5. Some people are saying Brian has passed it. One thing you have to remember about Brian Shaw, he has made the final every single year. Not just made the final, he's won his group
yeah.
every single year since, I believe, 2009.
So based on that, you have to say this is a battle for second place in this group.
Yeah. You know, Brian peaks for World's Strongest Man. The events usually suit him at World's Strongest Man. He came second at World's Strongest Man last year. He likes World's Strongest Man. Mm-hmm. Obviously, being a 4-time winner, he just has that experience. He knows when to switch it on in terms of going at 100%. He knows when to hold back. That experience, I believe, is going to get him through this group. It's a tough group. He's got Trey Mitchell in there. It's a hypothetically tough group.
Yeah.
He's got Trey Mitchell in there. Again, I mean, when we think of the stone off, being good at stones is going to be very beneficial. Mm. And, I mean, we've got Ivers in this group as well, who's a good stone lifter. But Brian, Trey, Ivers, all excellent stone lifters.
Shane Flowers is good at stones too.
He is as well, yeah. I mean, it's a stacked group once again, as they all are. We've got Shane Flowers, Nedsmin, Ambeskovich, and Mika Toro. So for me, if it does come down to a group like this, I think Brian Shaw wins the group.
Yeah.
And then I think you're going to have a great battle for second place.
Man, I wish we didn't have the stone off.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have something
different.
different.
I think we'd have more exciting battles with a standard Atlas Stone event that everyone gets to do.
Do you remember 2014 where they took the 2 highest third place group?
Give us that world. So I would take anything, to be honest. Do you remember 2015? I didn't like this, don't do this. Where the stones were worth double points in the groups.
Double points is no good.
Did not enjoy that.
Do you know what would be interesting?
Go on.
Giving the athletes a wild card that they could use double points on.
But for a certain event?
For a certain event.
No.
But they're only allowed to announce it to the referee.
No, because then it's too much of a TV show and not a sport, isn't it? That's crazy. I'm not saying it wouldn't be entertaining, but it's crazy.
I just like 6 events. Everyone do all the events and the top 2 guys go through, but we know that's not the case. They want it to be a TV show. They want it to be exciting for
everyone doing the stones then, because I think we're going to have some really close battles in the heats and it could change everything.
Well, you could have a group such as Group 3 where maybe Trey, Ivers and Shane are all still in a battle to get through. Maybe Brian's still in a battle as well. 4 guys that could be, in a shootout on stones. I'd rather see that than 2 guys just on a stone off.
Definitely.
Anyway, group number 4, another tough group and one that we kept changing.
Yeah. I'm still not certain about group 4, but I can't look at it again just to do it.
Well, we looked at many things. We looked at previous performances. We looked at people that have made the final before. For most of these groups, you've got 2 or 3 guys that have made the final. I took out 2 guys. I took out Mark Felix and Gregor Szymanski because both of them, it's been a long time since they made the final. So other than those guys, it's more recent finals. We've got obviously Alexei Novikov, 2020 winner of World's Strongest Man. Maxime Boudreau, 3rd place last year. Now, Rob Kearney was someone we changed a lot.
And he went up and down as well, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, we had Rob in one group at one point and we were like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then you start looking at Rob's recent results. You think, he was 5th at the Arnolds. He was 6th at the Rogue Invitational. He's a very, very good strongman. He's won one of the Arnold's shows before.
Yeah, Arnold's Australia.
Rob, I hate to say it, with the right events.
With the right set of events.
The problem Rob has is he does have some events he's not so good at. So he's one of those athletes. Right now, you've got to see what the events are. Once the events are announced, you'll have a better understanding of how Rob's going to do. But from recent performances, he's a great strongman and someone you just wouldn't want in your group.
No.
Then we got Paro Dwyer, obviously passed 2nd at Britain's Strongest Man this year. I think he's got experience now at Worlds. I think he's going to be suited to the slower pace. And I think from what we've heard, it is going to be more of an athletic type World's Strongest Man. Could be better for someone like Par.
Work for Par.
Payman Mahedapur.
He's a bit of an unknown, Payman.
I agree. We all see the deadlift videos and stuff like that, but we haven't seen him compete in a full strongman show, particularly a high-level strongman show. He looks absolutely massive. I think if there is a deadlift in there, he's going to do very, very well.
But is that going to work against him in the other events, his size?
Yeah, and when you could take Payman a few years ago, he was actually quite athletic. He was good at things like arm over arm. He moved well. Has that size hampered those type of events? It's going to be interesting to see, but an unknown, and he could be a very dangerous unknown. And then we've got Kim Urak in that group as well. Kim's an excellent deadlifter. This is his first World's Strongest Man. I think he needs to go and just, you can't put Kim as a seed. No. It's just, for new guys in their first high-level show,
they're going to get
about
tough
experience.
Groups.
They're going to get tough groups, and they need to go and try as hard as they can and prove that they deserve to be there.
Oh, Group 5.
And Group 5.
Group 5. So this was Mateusz's group. Group 5 looks completely different to how it started. And, wow, it's just... This is one of those groups. Well, the others I can pick out too. I can't in Group 5. And I don't think that means it's a group of death, because there's more than 2 really good guys in every group. I just think it's quite even in the middle of that group.
This is a group where, on paper at least, you look and think this is going to be a battle.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing with Worlds, and I've experienced it myself before, you go there, you look at their group, and you're like, some groups you look, damn, that group's incredible, and it will fall apart.
Yeah.
And you'll look at another group thinking, that's not so tough, and it becomes the hardest group. So you just don't know until you get there and start performing. But on paper, Luke Stoltman, Bobby Thompson, both of those guys joint third at the Arnold, by the way. Pavlo Kordiak, who's just come fourth at Europe's, didn't really train for it. He's impressive, improving all the time. Rauno, I think Rauno is a little bit of an unknown right now.
Yeah.
Rauno in his prime, excellent strongman, won many international shows. I think if he can come to Worlds in shape, he's a pain in the backside for a lot of people.
Definitely.
Athor made the final last year. Very, very good Icelandic strongman. And Gav Bilton, he is also in this group. Gav, for me, he's going to struggle in that group.
He would. We're all going to struggle in that group.
It is just a really tough group. I mean, but then you kind of move them around and you think, well, all right, let's take...
The problem is we have moved them, and it just... That's what we've come up with.
I mean, at one point we had Rob Kearney in that group instead of Pavlo.
Yeah, and that didn't work.
Yeah, you're like, well, that's ridiculous. Then you've got like joint third and fifth from the Arnolds in the same group. It's so hard to do. And
trying to balance the group, it's like a science, isn't it? I don't envy the people that have to do this. I mean, I think they've done some horrendous jobs in the past. I'm not going to lie. And I don't, we are open to criticism of our choices.
Look, you guys can be as harsh as you like. Tell us if you agree, tell us if you don't agree.
But don't be harsh without listing your groups as well, because it's really not easy.
Yeah, you've got to kind of think about giving the reason behind the name. It's all very well saying your favourites. I'm friends with a lot of these guys. I have tremendous amount of respect for every single one of them competing. But when you are sat there trying to...
almost rank them and then spread them out. So remember the principles that you must stick to. You can't have too many Brits, too many Americans, etc. You need representation. You need, levels.
Recent performances as well.
Yes.
You can't really go on what, I can't get an invite to World's Strongest Man based on what I did in 2016.
No.
So you really need to go on the last 2 years of competition. Who's performing well currently?
Yeah.
That's big factors. Who's won shows? Who's made the final recently? Who performs well in this type of competition?
Yeah.
And then obviously it'll all change again once we know the official events. Yeah. But there you go, guys. That's our groups for World's Strongest Man 2022. It'll be interesting to see how close they are to the actual groups once they're announced.
Nothing like it.
And if World's Strongest Man want any help, don't ring us because this is a nightmare.
Yeah, don't call us, we'll call you.
I hope you enjoyed the video as much as we did making it. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know who you think should be in each group. And obviously, who you want to win this year's World's Strongest Man.